I'm Roger Wilsey. I'll be joined behind the scenes by my colleague, Ann O'Callaghan. She'll be advancing the slides. So thank you for joining the AARP Washington program today. AARP Washington is committed to sharing information on ways to best protect ourselves from fraud, to enhance our brain health, and to age safely in our homes. Last year, over 2,000 Washington residents viewed one of the 100 virtual presentations given by the volunteers in our Speakers Bureau. Today's presentation is about AARP's Fraud Watch Network, a nationwide effort to share information on ways to protect against fraud and identity theft. We will share an inside look at how some scammers think. You'll learn how to improve safeguards against identity theft and fraud. And we will let you know what to do if you or someone you know has been a victim. Today's speakers are Lee Weissman and Kay Tomlinson. Lee has been a part of AARP's Speakers Bureau for about 5 years. Her early teaching career was in public schools and the community colleges. After that, she spent a major part of her career in corporate training. She lives in Redmond. Kay has been a volunteer with AARP Speakers Bureau for about 4.5 years after retiring from a successful career in business. She's coming to us today from her home in Lake Tapps. Without further ado, I'll let the speakers take it away.
Thank you, Roger. And thank you all for being with us today. Can we have the next slide, please? What are we going to talk about? Well, we've got a lot to talk about today. And I want to get started with the agenda. Why AARP? Well, we're going to talk about why AARP has become the go-to place when seniors need help. And we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the landscape or the big picture of fraud. And we're going to talk about the trends, and we're going to talk about the con artist playbook. And we're going to do all of this to make you all aware of what kind of things are out there coming after your money. And they're hoping that you will not be clever enough to catch them, and they will then be able to scam you. So we've got some prevention strategies and techniques, and we also have some resources that are going to be provided for you. Probably in the next 24 hours, they will be sent to you, and then they can be distributed to all of the people who have attended or have interest in that. And then we'll have a Q&A, a question and answer period at the end. So next slide, please. To answer the question, why AARP? Well, AARP Washington has been a leader in the fight against fraud for many years. We have had a very active community trying to get the word out. But why AARP? Well, there's a lady whose picture is here, and this is Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus. And she's a very interesting lady, or was an interesting lady. She was the very first woman principal in California. And this was like 60 years ago. And she had a family. She came from some comfortable accommodations financially. And when she retired, she went to visit a friend of hers who had been a colleague. And she found that this poor woman was living in a chicken coop, because that's all she could afford. She had medical bills, she had bills of her own. And at that point, Dr. Andrus decided that she needed to take action on behalf of senior citizens. And she went through a series of activities. She first started to try to get some kind of insurance for them. And then there were some other activities. And it went through a series of things that were activities that were related to ways in which the lives of seniors could be made easier. And eventually, the AARP was founded. And our volunteers, as Roger spoke earlier, have spoken with nearly 1 million victims. Now think about that, 1 million victims of fraud. So we're here to get the word out and to help you protect yourself. Next slide, please. Let's look at some statistics here. Now, it's hard to read all the numbers, but what you see here are these turquoise boxes starting at the left and going to the right, and they are by age. And the left-hand edge is those that are 19 and under. And if you go to the right-hand side, you see the ones that are 80 and over. And those bars represent amounts of money lost by each of those categories. So you see the youngsters, those 19 and under, have had relatively small losses, $250, but $250 in today's world means a lot because your money doesn't go that far. But if you look at the other end, those that are 80 and over have lost $1,500. That's a much bigger bite. So the losses are definitely, and the targets are definitely within the senior citizens. Now, this golden line that starts at the top and moves down on the left, from the top left to the bottom right, that shows you how the reporting has done. So those that are 19 and under are very fast to report. 47% have reported their losses, where only 17% of those people over 80 have reported their losses. And why is that? Well, because as senior citizens, our money is so valuable to us. We know how important it is to us. And we don't want to let people know that we've made a mistake. We don't want our children to know. They may take away some of the self-control that we have. So it's really like these are figures that are reported, but the chances are that the losses are way more than what shows on this chart. So people, we are the targets. So I'm going to today, along with Kay, tell you ways that hopefully there will be a little bell that goes off in your head that says, stop, don't do that. Next chart, please. Oh, actually, Kay is going to tell us how that happens.
Thanks, Lee. And how does that happen? How do people get victimized by scammers? I mean, we're smart people, right? I mean, we're going to recognize that this is a play to get our money or our financial information, but education, financial education, your standard of living, your financial ability has nothing to do with being taken advantage of by the fraudsters. So what's the secret? Well, AARP has talked with con artists, both in prison and those out of prison working with law enforcement. And you know, they all say the same thing. We get them under the ether. And so I didn't understand what this meant until I started volunteering with AARP, because from my perspective, the last time I even heard about ether was when I got my tonsils out when I was 6. But somebody is under the ether. That is a heightened emotional state. That could be fear, anxiety, happiness, excitement, the idea of being emotionally controlled to where You're not thinking logically. You're not thinking, does this make sense? You're not asking yourself, why do I have to make a decision right now about giving somebody that I don't know money? Your emotions take over and they're controlling what you do. And what we really need to do is think in terms of the con artists as having this message. We get them under the ether. We can't think of con artists and fraudsters of being, somebody on the street that's going to hit us on the head and take our purse. Oh, they're just a bunch of gang of people or young people or old people or whatever we might think. We need to think of con artists as being sophisticated. These people are educated to philosophy. They are mentored by other cons. And as I said, they are sophisticated and have scripts that know how to get you into that heightened emotional state. So what's to do? If we get contacted by somebody that says, the police are on the way because we haven't received your utility payment, you're excited. There's been a $550 charge on your Amazon account. Now we're upset, we're excited, we don't know what to do. Our computer locks up. What do we want you to do? Let's take a look at the next screen. We want to show you today how to recognize these frauds. And then we want to show you, how do I resist? I said these people are sophisticated. They target us. They know what to say when we say no. They want to convince us. How can we resist? And then very, very important, and we're going to talk about this several times, we want you to report what to do if you are approached or if you're victimized by a fraudster. So let's take a look at some trends in terms of overall behaviors and what's the landscape of fraud here in Washington State. I'm thinking that the top three probably not going to be a surprise to just about anyone. Imposter scams, ID theft, online shopping, 1, 2, and 3. And probably 1 and 2 have been 1 and 2, 2 and 1, 1 and 2, back and forth for several years, because these are popular ways for scammers to approach us to get money and our personal information. So those that are listed in red we're going to focus on those in a little more detail. But also on this list, credit bureaus, information furnishers said, so what does that mean? Those are organizations and groups that gather information about our activities, say online, social media. What do we participate in? What do we view? They gather information about us, and then they sell that information. Banks and lenders are included on this list. And of particular interest to me, prizes, lotteries, sweepstakes. I say personal interest. My father-in-law was convinced he was a winner in a huge national sweepstakes and was going to win enough money to take care of his wife in the hospital. He went through his entire life savings before we could take control as the family and stop that. Internet services, somebody calls you and says you have a virus on your computer. Of course, that's false. They're not keeping track of your computer like that. Auto-related repair scams, debt collection scams. Someone contacts you and tries to convince you to pay a debt you don't think you really owe, but they're so forceful and convincing and sophisticated that you're starting to doubt yourself, because now you're getting up into the ether thinking maybe this is true. And then especially with the pandemic and all the changes in the job landscape, business and job opportunities that are false, but require you to provide your personal information. So Lee, I mentioned we were going to talk about these top 3 in more detail. Can you share this information? It's so important for people to be aware
Yes,
of.
thank you, Kay. Okay, number 1 of the scams, this is the most prevalent of the scams, are what we call imposter scams. An imposter is somebody who tells you that he or she is someone that he or she is not. And very often they pull the name of somebody very important and very powerful, because that gets your attention and you tend to automatically believe that that's really who this person is. So there have been many people who have been notified supposedly by Social Security or Medicare. Now, Social Security and Medicare will never send you an email asking you for personal information, not ever. And if you get something from Social Security or Medicare and you think that it might be legitimate, do not respond to the text or to the email. Call them directly. Look up the number. Don't use a number that they send you, because they're sending you to themselves. And then, of course, they're going to tell you it's legitimate. So be very wary. And if you see these kinds of calls on your phone or texts, ignore them or do not answer the call. Tech support, that is something, as Kay mentioned before, people are likely to call you and say, I've noticed that there's a problem with your computer, and they want to take control of your computer. If they do, if you allow them to, they can plant bugs in there. And then you have to pay them to fix it and take it off. So it's really a scam. Hang up. Now, a lot of us that are senior citizens have been taught you have to be polite. You don't hang up on people. Folks, we're living in a different world today, and you have to drop that kind of courtesy. If you didn't solicit the call, hang up. And something else I want to add to the information here, and that is that for less than $10, you can purchase a piece of software that you can put on your telephone that will make the caller look like whomever you wish. You can make it the President of the United States. You can have the White House telephone number printed in there, and every call you make from that device will show that. So don't trust the numbers on the calls. And if you get calls and there's a little flag that goes up and says, this doesn't sound legitimate, hang up. If it's legitimate, they'll call you back. But then again, be very careful. They just may be tenacious. And if you get a call and it says a legitimate number, like it says your utility number, but they tell you to call a different number, you look up the number yourself to make sure and call that number directly. Now, I want to go on to sweetheart scams, and this is something that just really rocks me terribly. And the romance scams are scams where someone actually grooms a person, and generally it's men who groom the women, though there are some women who have groomed men. Predominantly, these people will contact a woman, and they may have a bit of information about her, like she likes dogs. Or he might call and say, I understand you have a poodle. Well, no, I don't have a poodle. I have a German Shepherd. Oh, well, I love German Shepherds. And they build they're trying to build trust, and they're building this confidence, and they keep calling and calling on, multiple times over a period of time. And when they have established a rapport, then they say, gee, I'd really like to meet you, but I can't afford to come right now because my truck broke down. And well, how much are the repairs on your truck? I'd really like to meet you too. Believe me, as soon as you send the money, you've kissed it goodbye, because that is a scam. He just wants to take your money, and he may lead you on after that and get more and more money. And I've heard from people who have experienced this, who live in this Seattle area. And looking at the statistics since 2017, the reported crime rate has gone up 3 times the number. So please, ladies, gentlemen, tell every woman you know to be aware of that. Moving on, there were a lot of COVID-related incidents, and I'm sorry, can you back up? Yeah, okay, I'm going down to the next bullet here. There were a lot of COVID-related incidents. Anything that happens in the news, the scammers are going to jump on that as an opportunity to try to get money from you. The floods in California, you can be sure that you're going to get called to ask for money for that. If you're going to donate money, make sure you're donating it to a legitimate cause, not a scam artist. The IRS, it falls in the same category as Social Security and Medicare. The grandchild or relative in distress, many of the people in the place where I live in a senior living development also, and many of them have gotten calls saying, Grandma, this is your grandson. And the woman says, you mean George? Yeah, this is George. And I'm really in trouble. I got arrested and I need money, but don't tell mom. Please don't tell mom. It would really upset her. This is a secret between you and me. That is a scam. What you need to do is hang up and then call that relative and find out, are they okay? And I'm positive that they are. That they're not involved in the scam. And there are lots of other things. So we want to make you aware that not everybody who calls you is a good person. Now we'll move on to the next one, which is identity theft. And identity theft is misuse of personal information. So some of your information gets stolen from the mail, or there may be a glitch in, say, a doctor's office. If you go to a doctor's office or a dentist office and they ask for your social security number, first of all, you need to ask them, why do you need that? Because they really don't. But if they have it, how are you handling this data? There have been cases where there have been mishandling of data, and someone has gotten a hold of it from doctors' offices, from businesses, all kinds of, and sometimes just out of the trash. But once they have your social security number, they can go on a buying spree on your behalf, and then you are stuck with the bills. So you need to make sure of that in terms of there's misuse of personal information when you open a new account, that where you need to make sure that you're really opening the account with the appropriate organization. There have been data breaches that I have mentioned to you, and there have also been bogus job offers. Now, most of us living in senior communities aren't interested in looking for a job, but we've got children or grandchildren who are. And as Kay mentioned earlier, particularly during COVID, there were a lot of people who were out there looking to capture social security numbers and personal information. If someone is looking for a job and there's actually a process, you do not have to give your social security number until you have in your hand a legitimate job offer with a legitimate company that you have checked out. So let's go to the next slide, please. Number 3 is online shopping. And this just absolutely exploded during COVID. We were home, we still needed items, so we started buying online. And the complaints have more than doubled in the past 2 years involving money paid, but the objects never received. Or if it was received, it was a piece of junk and you paid really good money for it. And then if you had to send it back, it was going to cost you money to send it back. So be very careful about your purchases online. Check out the seller before you buy. And please pay by credit card, not debit card. There are way more protections, legal protections on a regular credit card. On a debit card, the crooks have a way of getting in there and they can empty your whole account. And what's worse, they may be able to access the account that it's linked to and strip that as well. So please be very careful from whom you order and how you pay, and also keep all the documentation, a description of the item, the price, what you paid, and any correspondence. That will help you if you have to fight the situation. So at this point, like I've talked about scams that cover all of us of all ages, but they're more prevalent amongst the seniors. And now there are some other scams that really target senior citizens. And Kay, will you please tell us about them?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lee. Yes, there are some specific scams that we find are really targeting older adults. Why is that? Well, because they're successful for the fraudsters, and investment fraud is one of those scams. Think in terms of gold coin scams, in terms of in this time of inflation, we don't know what's going to happen for a recession. We need to put our money into something tangible like gold coins. And so there are offers, you might see them in magazines, you might get emails or texts or phone calls to buy such a great deal on gold coins. Be aware and be wary. If you want to buy gold coins, if you're a collector, wonderful. You go to a reputable dealer yourself. Don't respond to somebody that just contacts you out of the blue. Now, I'm willing to bet that just about everybody that's listening to this session has received those invitations in the mail to either a free lunch or a free dinner. Really lovely. They sound so nice. It's usually quite a very nice restaurant and really a nice meal. And so all we have to do is go enjoy a free meal, but then listen to whatever investment advice the company, I'll say company in quotes, is offering. And, you know, I think that this is a really tough fraud because there are legitimate companies that use this process as a device to generate business. I've been to one of those, and yes, it was a legitimate company, but I looked at it and the investments that they were suggesting, spectacularly expensive if I were to invest in those companies. So if it's a legitimate company, go listen, but go with an open mind and really do your research and investigation. But why do fraudsters send those out and pay for these lovely meals? Because of a principle called reciprocity. Because if somebody gives us something for free, we feel like the least we can do is to listen. And once we listen, and then they said, you know, let's take a look at your investments and how can we help you? Well, you know, it was such a lovely lunch. Let's talk about it. And they've got you. And so moving on, home repairs. And, you know, even if you're in a facility there, where you're at, if you're in a condo, a home, it hardly matters. There are still things that happen that need to be repaired and fixed, big or small. And so anybody that just comes to the door, be wary. You know, we just happen to be working with your neighbors next door or down the street. No. If they want money up front, that's a red flag. And anybody that's going to actually do a repair of any size, yes, they're going to want a certain percentage. It might be 30%, it might be 50% to buy material up front. Do they want 100% up front? Hang up the phone, close the door, tell them to go away, tell them no. That's one of those times where you don't have to be that nice, as Lee said. And then what really tugs on the heartstrings are charity scams. We call them badge charities. You might get phone calls or emails purporting to be from the police or the fire department, an organization to support these folks. And as Lee said, same as natural disasters, the scammers watch the news, defunding the police. We need to help. And then many times, these are scammers. Even if it's a legitimate organization, there are professional fundraisers that work for legitimate organizations. You need to understand how much of your money is actually going towards the cause that you want to support. If 90% is going to the fundraiser themselves rather than the cause, you're going to want to step back and take a look at that and make a decision. Go to do research and contact the organizations you want to support directly. So let's take a look at the next slide and talk about something in all of these scams that we've talked about is a common thread, a big red flag. And that is where the person either on the phone, text, email is saying, you need to pay by gift card or by cryptocurrency. And they have certain language that they'll use in terms of working you into the ether, as we talked about. This is an urgent financial matter. Your water's going to be turned off by 5 o'clock today if you don't pay right now. But I'll hold on the phone while you drive over and buy gift cards, and read me the numbers off the back to pay. No, gift card, big red flag. Or you must pay now. And again, gift cards, cryptocurrency or wire transfer. These are all red flags. Government agencies, your utilities, companies are not going to ask you to pay anything over the phone to begin with, and they're not going to pressure you, and they're not going to ask you to pay by gift card or cryptocurrency. And, many times we have folks tell us in these sessions, well, I'm absolutely safe because I don't know anything about cryptocurrency. So if they say I have to pay by cryptocurrency, I'm not going to get taken in. Well, in the first place, cryptocurrency is slowly but surely overtaking gift cards as the preferred method of payment by scammers. Secondly, just like they're happy to wait on the phone while you go and buy gift cards and read them the numbers, they are happy to tell you the location of the cryptocurrency ATM that's closest to you. And when you get there, they're happy to tell you how to use it. It's really not hard. So it's becoming more and more popular. And believe me when I say that this is virtually untraceable. Once you read the numbers, once you enter anything into that cryptocurrency ATM, the money is absolutely gone. So let's kind of take a little side trip right now on the next slide. And this is also a part of fraud that we sometimes don't like to think about it. Raj, if we can go to the next slide. And that is financial exploitation. And again, we've been talking about stranger danger, people that we don't know that are after our money and our personal information. But there are other forms of fraud and elder abuse. And again, it's things that we don't like to talk about because this could be forgery on legal documents, large withdrawals, or transfers from personal accounts, or property, jewelry that's missing. And what makes this particularly heartbreaking is that the perpetrators are often family. They might also be caregivers. So Again, this is another tangible form of fraud that leads into and has a basis in some of these other things that we're talking about. And you can see on the slide here, DSHS has a toll-free number that you can call, 1-866-END-HARM, if you suspect that this is happening to a friend or loved one, because this is fraud, even if it's a member of the family. So Lee, what are some other secrets in the con artist playbook? These guys are good.
Absolutely, they are good. Thank you, Kay. And in some ways, this is repetitious because there are certain scam scripts that they use, but they might change the subject matter, or they might change the locale. They change the angle of the scam. So a lot of this has already been covered, but think about it in terms of investments. And if we start at the right-hand corner, we're going to go around like a clock. Again, as Kay said, if you go to these events, or if they call you or they send you an email that some financial organization has something that is really going to make your world better, and all you have to do is comply with this and buy their product, and they're likely to quote credibility. I went to school with Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett believes, and they'll pull names out of the hat so that you will believe them. My gosh, if they went to school with Warren Buffett, or he recommends it, then it must be good. Well, you need to verify who these people are, and do they really have the credentials to be selling you a product. And on the information sheet that you'll be getting, you will see the website for the FINRA, which is the Financial Regulatory Agency. It's a federal agency, and anyone who is selling a financial product should be a registered agent, and the product should be registered with the governmental agency. So please check it out. Also, scarcity. I've seen TV programs where they're auctioning things off, and they have a big clock, and it shows you that the clock is ticking down, and they're going to stop the auction at that time, and people start working in a frenzy to buy whatever the product is. That is a trigger that you need to be wary of. If somebody says, well, the deadline is 4:00 this afternoon, and you've got to buy this by then, or you're missing out. Or I only have 3 left. If you don't buy it, you're going to miss out on it. They're playing games with you. Check it out. Check out the product. Check out the person. And if we go to the middle of the screen, what are they working with? They're working with your fear panic button in all of these cases. And then in terms of, let's go down to the lower left corner and look at the profiling. And that works 2 ways. First of all, people may find your name because you are connected with some sport or activity or ethnic group, and they have gotten your name and they call you to try to make friends. It's very much like I talked to you about with in fact, it is like the sweetheart scam. They want to get you to have faith in them. So they work into you. I'm a friend of yours because I own a beagle and you own a beagle. So therefore we are friends and we're sharing stories. But then while we've got you on the phone, how much money do you have in the bank, and how much are you willing to invest? And where do you bank? And they're looking for all kinds of personal information. If you do not know the person, if you are not certain of the identity of the person, do not share personal information. And then we'll go to the last square up at the top left, which is phantom riches. A lot of people are so surprised they won a lottery. Well, if you didn't buy a ticket, how can you be a winner? And the truth is, that there are a lot of people, unfortunately, who really believe they've won. But the issue is you've won all of this money. However, we can't release it to you until you pay this special fee. And this special fee is $300. Is that the warning, Roger? Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, if you won the prize, you have to pay a special fee. And then once you pay that special fee, they come back and say, oh my goodness, I forgot that there is a state fee on that. So where's another fee? You never get the prize. Next screen, please. I want to talk to you about a study that was done 2 years ago by the former head of our Washington AARP office. And he interviewed in a special study that he did with the University of Chicago. He interviewed over 9,000 people about all kinds of things about their lives. And one of the questions was, were you ever scammed? And then he went back and analyzed the information from that. And this is what he found, that this was common amongst all those 9,000 people that were interviewed. Of those who were scammed, they had a stressful event in their life. They had less closeness and less family support. They had stronger emotions, positive or negative, and they had been targeted by scammers before. So if you fall into any of these categories, then you need to be particularly careful. That's our heads up to you. Next slide, please. So what can you do about all of this? Well, the first thing that I want to encourage all of you to do is to get a credit report. And you can get a free one once a year from each of the 3 agencies. But you need to get one so that you can see, is the information correct? And if the information is not correct, then you need to get it corrected, find out what you need to do. And then you need to lock your credit. And there's a procedure. You're going to get a handout on how to lock your credit. And once you lock the credit, you will have a password, and only you will be able to check your own credit. And that prevents somebody else who has your Social Security number from going out and buying a boat and charging it to you. So that's a very important thing. Avoid social media and pop-up ads. A lot of people were victimized. Be very careful. Be cautious when you're answering your phones and emails. If you don't know who the caller is, don't answer the phone. If it's important, if it's legitimate, they will leave a message. And then you can decide whether you want to call them back or not. But also be wary that scammers can change the name on that caller ID. So I'm giving you permission. If you feel it's a scam, if you're not interested, hang up. We encourage you to use online banking as opposed to writing checks. Checks can get stolen in the mail, and you don't want to carry around a lot of cash. So online banking is really your best bet. And what we would recommend you do is that you notify your bank and your credit card and ask them to set up notifications. And that means you can set the dollar amount, and you can set it as low as, I don't know, a penny, I think, but I have it set for $1. And if there is any change in the account of $1, we get a notification. And then we can look it up. Is that legitimate? And with that, I'm going to talk as fast as I can. My husband got a text a couple of months ago that said $12.82 or some amount like that was just charged at Burger King. We were sitting in our apartment. We weren't at Burger King. My husband immediately knew that that was a scam. It was a text, and he did not reply to the information or to what it was whatever the directions were that they asked him to do. And then he went out on our accounts and he saw nothing was changed on the account. So it was just a way for the scammer to try to catch us, to try to catch him, so that if he replied to that, then he'd be in their territory. Check the credentials of professionals, and I've mentioned that before. And Kay, what else can we do?
Thanks, Lee. Yes, more prevention strategies. This might not pertain to you in your facility because you likely already have locking mailboxes, but make sure kids, grandkids, family, friends have locking mailboxes. Mail fraud, stolen mail is a definite type of fraud that is still, unfortunately, very, very popular. And shred your documents. Don't just throw them in the trash, throw them in the recycling hole. Get a crosscut shredder to go ahead and destroy documents with sensitive personal information. That includes your medical and healthcare information, your medical insurance and Medicare statements. And we can tell you that probably the number one thing that you can do to protect yourself from fraud online when you access accounts, use strong passwords. Do not, I repeat, do not use the same password for every one of your accounts online. You're just inviting loss and fraud if your system is hacked. Consider using a password manager, and PC Mag, Wired.com has definite information about the types of password managers available that you can do some research. And yes, sign up for the Do Not Call registry. Yes, that is still a thing. It still works, and it will at least cut down on some of the excess calls. Won't impact the pharmacy calling you or your doctor's office, but it will cut down on some of those nuisance calls. It's not going to stop robocalls. Scammers don't care about that, but it will help. I thought that pre-approved credit card offers were not really a thing anymore. I got one last week.
Oh,
It's still a thing. Rip those up, shred those, throw them out. Even if it's actually legitimate, the interest is going to be spectacular on that. Just shred them. And as Lee has said, use a credit card for purchases online instead of a debit card. Credit card companies are going to reimburse you for loss. Your banks have no legal requirements to reimburse you for any loss you might sustain. And then we highly encourage you to join AARP's Fraud Watch Network. And that is so easy to do. Let's take a look at the next slide. You can see in yellow aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. You can get information nationally. And then if you go in the search and type Washington or WA, you'll find information about our state as well to keep up on the latest information about fraud. If you suspect that you have been approached by a scammer and you're not sure, it's okay. We want you to report it. If you think you've been targeted, if you've been victimized and had a loss, if a family member is being victimized, we highly encourage you to call the Fraud Watch helpline, 877-908-3360. This is on the information sheet that everyone will be receiving. This is a call center staffed by people who are highly trained. And I must say, they are quite, what would you say, Lee? They're very,
they're well informed. They're really well informed.
Well informed and passionate.
Yes.
About helping people deal with potential scams. And they're going to help you report that to the proper authorities. So let's take a look at the next slide. And these are just some of the resources that we're going to be sending out to GenCare to share with y'all. I mentioned the resource. We're going to list Con Artist Playbook, how to freeze your credit, as Lee mentioned, extremely important. And it's really pretty easy. So go ahead and take a look at those when you get them. We encourage you to share that information with your family and your friends. Share everything that you've learned today with your family and friends. And so besides sharing with your family and friends, what are the next steps that you're going to take away, that we hope that you're going to take away from this session? Well, sign up for the AARP Fraud Watch Network Watchdog Alerts. Every couple of weeks, you'll get an email about fraud happening in our area. And remember to take some steps to better protect yourself. If you get approached by something that you think might be a scam, check it out. Step back, put together a refusal script. If you're not sure you can react by saying no, think about it, check it. Anything that you might have regarding personal information, lock it up. Even on your computer, lock it up with antivirus protection, shred documents, and report any potential fraud. Report it and share this information. You know, I saw something on a cybercrime website the other day that I actually wrote it down because it just really struck me as something so true, but so simple. It says, keep in mind, if you didn't pay for a product, you are the product. You are the product that the scammers are going after. They want your money. They want your personal information so they can take advantage. So keep that in mind. We're going to move on, and we have a few minutes left to see if we have any questions for Lee and myself. Roger, do we have any questions in the chat?
There are no questions.
Does anyone have any questions that you'd like to unmute and just ask us? And keep in mind, we're recording this, so if you'd rather not be recorded, understandable, go ahead and put them in the chat. But if you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to do so. Sandra, do you have a question?
Yeah, sometimes we get like an email that you can tell right away that it's a scam. Just the way, whatever they're saying or trying to get information from you or whatever. And I've always been, I don't want to click on it to get into it, but I know, and I want to report it, but it's really hard to find a number or a place that you can send it to or say that this is happening. I don't, for, Yahoo Mail and Google or the Gmail and stuff. And is there anywhere that you can report that without having to touch it or anything? Because I don't want it to get, if it has a virus or something, I don't want to get it on my computer either. So it's just, I just have a hard time. I've researched sometimes on Yahoo, just trying to find a place to send it or to explain that that's happening on their platform.
Well, I'm not sure that there's a place to report that, but I'm very proud of you for recognizing that it is a scam. And one of the things, there are so many things we could have told you, but we have, a limited time. But one of the things that you need to be aware of is that sometimes there are emails that come out that have the name of somebody and the message will have an innocuous wording to it, like, here are some photos I think you'd like to see. And then there's a URL. Well, if you look back to Joan Smith, and Joan Smith, but if you look at her email address, that's not her email address. Somehow or another, they have gotten in there. And what you need to do is delete that. And then you might want to call her and let her know that she needs to change her passwords, that she's been hacked. But I'm not aware of anyone that you can actually report it to, but I would just recommend that you delete it and then empty your trash. Kay, do you have other information?
Yeah, and so Sandra, if you get those emails, whether, Walgreens, Amazon, Sam's Club, different computer companies, I always recommend opening another tab on your computer and going to the website, Amazon whatever it is. And usually if you scroll down to the very bottom of that first screen, they'll have a section that says contact us. And, usually they want you, to contact them by phone or email or whatever. I write down the email and go back to that message and forward it to that email and say, I received this fraudulent email. And I can guarantee you that companies so appreciate that. Companies like Amazon have teams that do nothing but work and address fraudulent activities under their name. The other thing that you can do is take a look at the information sheet that we're going to be sending out, and a government resource, IC3 for computer fraud, ic3.gov, gives you a very easy opportunity to say, received this and it's a scam. When you look at that, I applaud you for not clicking on anything, because you're right, that's how they want to infect you or convince you to give personal information. But if you take your cursor, your mouse, and hover over that one of those hyperlinks, you'll see on your screen typically where that email is going to take you, and you can share that with your reporting so they can follow up and see that.
Okay, yeah, because I've gotten
thing is to-
emails from PayPal too.
And,
But it just looks a little bit different. It's not, it's like their logo, but something's changed about it, or
And that is a very popular phishing scam from PayPal, and PayPal definitely wants to know about that, I guarantee you. So good job there recognizing that. And the key is to delete it, go into your trash and delete it from your trash.
Okay.
Thank you, Kay. I learned something today too, so I'm glad I attended today.
All right. Any other questions for us today?
Well, while you're thinking, I also want to add that when Kay was showing you the links for the AARP Fraud Watch Network, you do not have to be a member to access that. Anyone can access that for free. So please don't let that be a block, that keeps you from doing it, and share that information with your family and friends as well.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us today. On the screen, you'll see that AARP Washington has several other virtual presentation topics available. One specific to cybersecurity online that's a bit different than what we've been talking about today, even though we did touch on some cybersecurity, brain health, home fit, and one of our new sessions, downsizing and decluttering, which is quickly turning into one of our most popular sessions. And it's really tough to talk about that, because then we realize nobody wants our stuff.